But the main issue was about human rights, equal treatment for all the people. All the people had the right to be with the loved one, and it's very difficult to say that it's not a discriminatory way to limit this institution to different sex. This is it's a real, very controversial example, but I try to show in that case the importance that the human rights issue have in the discussion of all the different problems in Argentina. But this liberal or social democratic view has also a strong view about social justice and welfare state in general, and of course the aim of development. No? It's very important. Argentina is a country of immigration, so we are very open to all the people of different countries, and we mix, blend together. There is really it was a good example of melting pot during the 20th century. Now, of course, are arising the issue of the minority. For example, we have indigenous population, which is a minority, but is of course very, very poor, and all of different types of minority. But this is a country with the idea of equality in the social area very, very important. Nobody feels higher or taller or upon other people. It's in the social issue. The political level maybe is not so good, but at the social issue is a country with the idea that all the people are really equal and have to have the same rights. It's very difficult to fight against this idea because it's part of our identity. That's it.
Much. There was a question about the advancement of justice and what advice would give from the Chilean-Argentina perspective. Maybe you can touch upon that, and I will make a brief comment about Chile because that was the question. So what advice for the advancement of justice would you give from the Argentinian experience?
I think that it's like a process. In the case of Argentina, we don't have negotiation with the military rule because they collapse for the internal situation because they went to a war against Great Britain about the Malvinas Island. So they collapsed after that. They put in jail the general who went to war. They began the human rights issues. So when the transitions began, there were a general feeling of satisfaction about the end of the military rule because also the economic and social outcome of the process was really bad for the majority of the population. But the importance of democracy was really a consequence of the talk and the teaching of the political parties and the civil society, and especially of the human rights organization. No? That's the main actors who put the society to think about that. But it's important to understand that the military rule was really a disaster. So the problem was the society had to answer a question: why we went through all of this? What happened to us? So this was like the departing point to the discussion to assume democratic values and the the need to be part of the political and general discussion.
Thank you very much. From the Chilean point of view, I would say if one were to give an advice, and it's very difficult to do that because each reality is so different, but if one were to think out loud, I think one would have to say, first of all, that the criteria of the rule of law, that absolutely no one is above the law, it's absolutely a key principle, a key advice to keep in mind. No one is above the law. Second, make your court system work. If necessary, reform it so that it is through the court system that cases of violations of human rights would have to be addressed. Maybe third, think of mechanisms, ad hoc mechanisms, that in the transition may be instituted. In the case of Tunisia, it was done. In the case of Egypt, there are commissions of investigation. In the case of Latin America, there were commissions of truth and reconciliation, as well as in South Africa. And a key element is reparation. Reparation to the families of the victims. In the case of Chile, was, as I mentioned before, moral and material reparation for the families of those disappeared and assassinated. The most interesting thing that I think I should mention, because this could be relevant for Tunisia as well, where, as our commissioner mentioned, in the case of Tunisia, there were not political disappearances. There were repression beginning from the revolution. So what we did in Chile, we went a step further. We established a commission on political prison and torture. Political prison and torture. 35,000 people showed up to give their testimony. The commission extended its period. I can tell you about that because I went to the commission to put my case of imprisonment and torture. At the beginning, I didn't do it because I was a member of the government, and I thought, I don't need to do it. I let others do it. But then I thought it was a question of principle. I should give my testimony. And it was very interesting because I went to this commission. There was a panel. I was interviewed. I filled out some forms. I explained when I was arrested. I had to give some evidence, if evidence was available, of my arrest and how I was mistreated. And I talked to a member of a panel who took all the information, as they did for thousands and thousands of people. And it's very interesting because once the decision is made by the commission that you were indeed imprisoned politically and that you were beaten up or tortured, then a decision is made for a reparation, which is a minimal subsidy, monthly subsidy for life as an expression of reparation. It is more symbolic than material, but it has a material component. This is something that could be maybe considered in cases where there hasn't been the systematic repression of assassinations and disappearances, as in the case of Tunisia. I'm thinking very much in the case. To close, maybe to our Tunisian colleague, I can pose a question that it is for anyone on the panel. It was the last question that arrived, but it's very important because it says, in your opinion, what can now be done about the role of women? And the question is, some women's have been realized previously could be in danger now. I don't know whether this is a perspective from Egypt or from the transitions in general in North Africa and the Middle East. But here's a question about the role of women in the sense that in the past they had taken back seat, they have advanced, but now that they have been partly realized, are they in danger? And I perhaps would give the floor to close to our Tunisian commissioner, because in Tunisia, the role of women has been put in law. In fact, for the lists of parties, they have to have 50%, as I understand. So if you could address the issue of women's roles and how to avoid from what has been gained from falling back.
Bien sûr, rien n'est acquis complètement, il faut être vigilant. Et puis l'émancipation des femmes et leur participation, c'est un problème qui concerne tout le pays. Et il ne peut pas y avoir de pays d'hommes libres sans femmes libres. C'est une leçon que nous avons apprise depuis longtemps. Et depuis l'indépendance, du temps du premier président tunisien, le président Bourguiba, vous savez, l'indépendance de la Tunisie a été acquise le 20 mars 1956 et le mois d'août, mars, avril, mai, juin, juillet, août, 5 mois après, il y a eu la promulgation du code de statut personnel en Tunisie. C'est le premier dans le monde arabe. Absolument interdiction de la polygamie. C'est la première fois dans un pays musulman. Interdiction de la polygamie. Le divorce ne peut être que judiciaire. La femme peut demander le divorce à égalité avec l'homme. Lorsqu'elle le demande par ce qu'on appelle le divorce caprice. On l'a appelé le divorce caprice, c'est-à-dire je n'ai pas besoin de présenter mes conditions. Je veux divorcer. L'homme peut divorcer, la femme peut divorcer, mais le juge tranche entre les deux. De plus, l'alphabétisation de la Tunisie et le système éducationnel, c'est à égalité et poussé jusqu'en 92 où il y a eu une loi qui oblige les parents à inscrire leurs enfants à partir de 6 ans. Obligation qui, si elle n'est pas respectée, entraîne une sanction de la prison. Et puis, la femme a participé avec beaucoup d'associations. Et la plus célèbre, c'est l'association des femmes tunisiennes, des femmes démocrates, qui vient de tenir son congrès et qui la dignité, l'égalité et la citoyenneté. Maintenant, comment on a imposé? La commission des réformes politiques a adopté une loi qui a donné la façon avec laquelle l'Assemblée constituante va être élue. Premièrement, on a choisi le système de liste. Le système de liste à un tour, majoritaire, mais avec les plus grands restes. Je ne vais pas vous expliquer ça, pour beaucoup de monde vous la connaissent. Mais ils ont imposé que les listes doivent être... chaque circonscription, par exemple, une circonscription de 20 candidats, il faut qu'il y ait 10 femmes. La moitié, 50%. Toutes les listes. Il va y avoir 216 circonscriptions en Tunisie. 216 circonscriptions. Et il doit y avoir le nombre de candidats, moitié. Et même le fait de présenter les listes, pas, par exemple, 5 hommes puis 5 femmes, un homme, une femme, un homme, une femme, et puis l'autre liste, une femme, un homme, une femme et un homme. Maintenant, comment les gens vont voter? Parce qu'ils vont effacer des noms. Est-ce qu'on va avoir la moitié à l'Assemblée constituante? Je ne peux pas vous répondre maintenant. Cela dépendra de la campagne électorale, de la persuasion. Il faut que toute la société se mobilise, mais les Tunisiens, et les Tunisiennes surtout, ne sont pas prêtes qu'on leur vole leurs droits. Et elles vont se battre et nous allons nous battre. Nous espérons que nous allons arriver à un résultat. Maintenant, sur le plan des idées, sur le plan de l'engagement politique, il est total et il est accepté. Bien sûr, dans le secret de l'urne, il y a parfois des dérapages. Ça, c'est humain. Nous allons essayer de voir que il n'y a pas beaucoup de dérapage. Mais je ne peux pas vous répondre qu'à l'Assemblée constituante, il va y avoir la moitié de femmes. Ça, je ne peux pas vous le dire maintenant, puisque le vote est secret, libre et indépendant.
Thank you very much. This has been a a very good panel. We thank the panelists and thank all of you for the discussion.
Allez, merci. C'est heureux de...